This is my childhood Monopoly game from the 60s, 1960s that is, with wooden tokens, wooden dices, and wooden houses and hotels, and large notes, up to 100,000. Bad photos, sorry, but a beautiful game. In this video, I won't say one word about the long history or other background info of the Monopoly game, because there are lots of articles and video material about it all around the internet. This video is strictly about reviewing Monopoly game's playability and a couple of suggestions on how to make it a little bit better. So let's go. In Monopoly, there will always be the dice, and thus luck is involved in the game in a big way. That is okay too, because we are supposed to play a game and not to merely compete on intellect or memory. In my opinion, there is no simple way to determine how much winning in Monopoly is about luck and how much about skill. If you know your way around the Monopoly board and all your opponents are first-timers, you will no doubt win close to 9 times out of 10. Considering there is no team play against you and the novice players agree to trade with you at all. However, when all players know even the very basics of the game's strategy, luck takes over pretty quickly, unlike, say, in poker, not to mention chess, of course. Well, actually, I for one do think that even in chess, luck has a tiny relevance. There are usually less than, say, 5 realistical options for the best move, and you could very well guess right, say, 5 times in a row. But back to Monopoly. Between players with about similar experience, the one with better tactical eye gets maybe 10 to 20% advantage. That is my estimation. My view on Monopoly is that because of the dice, there will always be enough randomness in the game. So what you want to do is to give more room for the skill factor. Not too much, but a little bit more tactical emphasis would be ideal. You can achieve this by forcing the players into more real decision making. By real, I mean something other than should I buy Boardwalk when landing on it if I have the money? Because in more than 99% of cases, you would be a total jerk not to. I mean calculating the momentary risk-reward ratio when buying houses, so that you will be left enough money to cover your rentals and other payments, because selling houses is very expensive. Or estimating how much you want to invest in a certain auction. Or, first of all, considering a trade offer made to you. So, I will recommend 2 simple house rules to add on the decision-making aspect of the game. Firstly, the official rule that is, in my opinion, just plain bad. You should not be able to collect rentals when in jail. And why do I think so? Take the early game. There is only one thing to do, to get out of jail as soon as possible, because you need to go and buy property, of course. So there is no tactical relevance here. But entering jail in the mid-game forward. The game is clearly more interesting with the no rents received while in jail rule. If you can collect rents when in jail, you will later on in the game always want to stay in as long as possible. So there is no thinking involved at all. But when you will have to decide if you lose more incoming rents by staying in, or if you should stay clear out of harm's way by not trying to get out, then it takes some real decision making. It is very obvious, of course, but just a quick example. Okay, you are the top hat, and you were put in jail. And there are 3 other players roaming free on the board. You have built on the green color. Well, it can happen. But all the other players have just happily passed that spot of the board, and there is a serious danger of heavy rains against you as soon as you step out, because both pink and orange colors are built by your enemies. So if you have any understanding of the game, you will probably decide to stay in the next 2 turns in a situation like this. I would go as far as changing the rules so that you could stay in jail for the full 3 throws. That would emphasize the tactical aspect even more, and still it would not get too dull to just sit and wait. But let's not get too radical just yet. If the pink color group is yours, and the other players own orange and green, in that case you would probably want to stay in only 1 throw. Or would you? Sometimes it can be quite tricky to judge if you should go out or stay in. Let's take a brief look at this situation. So, once again you have been the naughty boy and you got in jail with your last throw. And let's say it is now your move again. Then goes the shoe, then doggy, and the last will be the race car. What we can see here is that the dog is your worst enemy. It looks like it will be the doggy or you. Doggy has these excellent colors, orange and red. Many consider them being the 2 best colors in the game. I don't, but many do. In any case, dog is quite strong here. Your big ace card is of course the dark blue hotels. Unless one player is very rich, Boardwalk or Mayfair hotel will take a player out at one go. It may not be a direct bankruptcy, but it will cause you to lose most of your buildings, and it is usually very, very difficult to get back on your feet after that. In this situation, the top hat has also the pink color as a handy backup. The third player that has any relevance here is the shoe. The green color is regarded as one of the worst in the game, but once you have hotels on it, it can cause a lot of damage. Very seldom players have enough cash to cover a visit to a green hotel. I would say that shoe has an outside chance of winning the game. Whereas no miracle can save the race car. It has only a few shabby houses on the light blue color. Race car is ready to be taken to the recycling factory. It will be out of the game very soon. But let's go back to the dynamics of the 3 key players. If you decide to leave jail now, you will very probably hurt more or less on the next throw. Some 3 houses per property here on the orange and hotels on the red color. In case you hit the red color, it will most often force you to sell something. Maybe even put down 1 color altogether. But that would require a major stroke of bad luck. Much more probably you will end up on an orange property. And presumably you could survive that visit with minor damages. And let's see what you could win by getting out now. There is a real but quite a slim chance that either race car or doggy lands on dark blue. If doggy did it, that would probably make you win the game. But the more probable outcome would be that both doggy and race car will avoid your places. However, the shoe has a good potential to come and make a visit on your pink hotel. Dicing 4, 6, or 7 would give that outcome. So far, this is a rather clear risk-reward estimation, but should you also consider giving the shoe a proper opportunity to help you destroy your worst enemy, the dog? Because if dog lands on a green hotel, and it very well might, you can safely assume that most of the instant threat towards you is gone, and gone perhaps for good. So, as it seems, the player you could most probably hurt on the next round is the shoe. But do you want to destroy the shoe before Doggy has had a chance to hit a green hotel? Maybe not. I made this example without a lot of planning, so there can be far more complicated situation than this. But I do think that even this one makes my point clear. The no rental collecting when in jail rule offers far more possibilities for tactical thinking than the official get in and stay in situation. Then to the next issue. The players have a little bit too much money at the start of the game. On modern boards, it is usually 1,500. And as the properties cost from 50 or 60 to 400, that means you can practically buy everything you land on, even on the first round, without any further thinking. And by mortgaging your other properties, you can most often build 2 to 3 houses per property on the very next round of the board. That takes away a big part of the fascination of the game. You are never a struggling entrepreneur, but more like a favorite son or daughter of wealthy parents. You can just about start at the top. But in life that seldom happens. But you will have to proceed with great caution and gradually find your way to the bigger circles. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little, but if players are able to build, say, the famous 3 houses per property early on and still maintain a healthy reserve of cash money, then you actually can determine the outcome of the game by just checking who owns the best color or colors. We don't want to play by the statistics, do we? So my suggestion is to hand out only 7 to 800 to each player at the start of the game. I have myself played interesting games by starting empty-handed and perhaps allowing small debts towards the bank until the first round's salary. Having less money, of course, makes the game a little bit longer, but it should still stay within the 2-hour mark. And on the other hand, players get bust more easily during the first rounds as there is less assets to lean on when bad luck strikes. Some final thoughts about the game. How good it really is. Length of the game. Hopefully this is not too rude to say, but if you don't fancy long games, that is perfectly fine. But don't come and tell the rest of us that long games are bad. Monopoly, for one, has to take a considerable time. Say anything from 60 minutes to 120 minutes. And on some rare occasions, say 150 minutes. It has to, because otherwise it would be all dice and very little tactics. If you attend a poker game session, you can't play just 5 or 7 rounds, because then you could just as well throw a dice about your money. To make the game tactical and make the outcome of the game to really mean something, the game has to have a reasonable length. Anyway, as I said, very seldom a Monopoly game goes past 2 hours. Practically, it can only do so in case the players are very bad. That is, they don't trade, which can result in a lockdown situation. Everybody gains more and more money, while rents have only a cosmetic impact on the player's economy. And then the game goes on forever. Another point that you often hear being put against the wonderfulness of Monopoly is the fact that players are taken down one by one, And sometimes it can take a good 60 minutes after your defeat before the winner is being celebrated, or universally hated by the other players. Yes, it really sucks to lose in Monopoly, especially to lose early on. But that doesn't make it a bad game. That makes it an exceptionally good game, almost a game in the class of its own. In the more modern games, you can keep all the players alive much longer and make the leader change more often with more twists and turns. But in the end, all that will simply mean that losing in the game won't suck as bad, and inevitably, winning won't feel nearly as good. It's almost irrelevant what will happen in a 30-minute game in which everybody seems to be close to the winning line in their turn. Just play another game and soon everybody has won at least once. Life is not like that. In life, very few players win, and most will lose in a very sucking way. Life hurts, and Monopoly will hurt too. That is why it is the uncrowned king of the pastime games, while chess is of course the king of the more serious games. Also, too many variables, too many interlocking systems, too many separate strategic considerations, artificial superfluous complexity will not add to the game's tactical challenge, but just makes the game experience scrappy and ultimately indifferent. It is not difficult to invent complicated games. The ingenuity of a game is in its simplicity. Like too many fancy features will not help improve creativity with, say, a movie-making program. Too complicated setting in a game will not add to the intellectual challenge. A chessboard with 64 identical squares and silent wooden tokens on it offers a larger and more challenging universe for a wargamer than a jillion gigabyte realistical map with dozens of different banging, crashing, hitting, and hopping live-like creatures. It is often said that in Monopoly you can tell the winner very early on, and then there is only a long torturing waiting for the inevitable. And in practice too often that is indeed the case. But the blame is not on the game, it is on the gamers. The beauty of Monopoly is in the negotiations. It represents market economy in quite a pure manner. You can trade with very few restrictions. And whenever one player gets into a too strong position, it is logical, fair, and highly recommended that the rest of the players do their utmost to turn the tables. And usually they can do it if they really get down to it. That has nothing to do with the dreaded team play, which is a real plague on the online Monopoly games. If one player is clearly winning, you will have to throw caution to the wind and make any crazy trade which could change the power balance on the board. On a game board of a good game, such as Monopoly, you can do that. In real life, less often.